Welcome and thank you for keeping it KTN Farmers TV. Today we will be talking about pesticide control products. And with me in studio is, I have two distinguished guests. And I'll start with my far left. That is Agric Mugui, who is the CEO, Agrochemical Association of Kenya. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Next to me is Dr. Esther Kimani, who is the CEO, Pesticide Control Products Board. Karibu, Daktari.
Thank you.
Let me start by maybe giving each one of you an opportunity to just maybe introduce yourselves again and tell us a little bit about what your organization stands for. And I'll start with you, Agric.
Thank you for giving this opportunity. Agric Kimungui is my name, and I work for Agrochemical Association of Kenya. Agrochemical Association of Kenya, as the name suggests, is an umbrella body, a member organization of all manufacturers, importers, distributors, users, and even consumers of pest control products in this country. So the things that we do is that we bring together all importers and ensure that the products, the innovations that we develop are used in a sustainable way. Where sustainability means we are taking care of the human health in terms of providing quality products, we are taking care of the environment, and we're also taking care of the users themselves. We do this through various initiatives, through regulatory policy and standards as one of the things that we do, talking to government, creating an enabling environment, things like the regulatory body. We also do this through our stewardship programs in terms of responsible use, training farmers, making sure they respect the recommendations on product labels, they use in the right way so that the benefits of the product is achieved, and it also minimizes the risks to the associated environment. We further do other things like, for instance, collection of containers for disposal, making sure that the containers don't contaminate the environment. And in doing this, we need partnerships in working with other people. That's why we have regulatory bodies, we have other development partners and everything else. And more so, we're also involved in innovations. How best can we accelerate farmers and change the behavior of farmers? And that's why recently we have given out innovations like spray service providers. That those are specialist farmers who are going to help farmers support, intervene through where we have issues between farmers, county governments. You know, agriculture is devolved. Yep. So we are coming in between so that we come with innovative solutions to deliver solutions that will change the behavior of farmers. So that's why we have spray service providers. So we have a lot of things that we can talk until tomorrow, but we have been there for the first 65 years.
Okay, thank you.
Just doing the same thing. But this one I must say, in the past 2 years, which is contrary to us, that we have been struggling, defending science rather than trying to train farmers. And that is the parity, and I believe is part of the discussion we're going to have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Agric. Dr. Esther, maybe tell us a little bit about the Pest Control Board and what it does.
I can start my introduction. My name is Dr. Esther Kimani. I'm the CEO of the Pest Control Products Board, or in short, PCPB. I hold a BSc in agriculture, master's in plant pathology, and PhD in crop protection.
Okay.
That is really relevant to this discussion.
That's all right.
And because we'll be discussing about pests today. The Pest Control Products Board is a government regulatory body. We regulate the manufacture, the import and the exports of pest control products, also the distribution and the sale, and also oversee the safe use of those products. And in doing that, we work very closely with the industry and the traders who are selling pesticides and the other pest control products to ensure that the products that are being sold they are efficacious, that is, they do the work for which they were registered, and also they are relatively safe. Let me say relatively safe, because when it comes to issues of pesticides, they are poisonous and they have to be used in a certain way. So before any pesticides are registered in Kenya, our staff, we do a lot of risk evaluation. And we determine that that pesticide can be used in the country. We evaluate the toxicology and the harm it can do to the humans, and also the environment, and also the animals. and before it is registered. And in that way also we are able to recommend how it should be handled when being used. And the information is normally on the label of the pesticides.
Okay.
And also we work together with the industry and other government bodies to train the farmers on safe use of pesticides, because if you are using pesticides or many pest control products, you should not just handle them the way you handle your water, because they can poison you. And, but they are also very beneficial. The reason why we do this is because, as you know, Kenya's economy depends on agriculture, and also we are in a tropical climate where the pests are very abundant.
All right.
And for you to be able to grow crops to feed the nation, you may need to use pesticides at one point or another. And because there are various ways of managing pests, but most of the time you find that you may not be able to manage pests in a large scale without having to use pesticides. However, we are in promoting the management of pests, we also teach farmers on how to use integrated pest management, which may also reduce the amount of pesticide that is being used.
Okay. Maybe if I start, I remain with you, Dr. Kimani. You talked about registration of pesticides. Let's say, for example, I've come up with a pesticide. What's the procedure for me?
For you, first is to make your application to the Pest Control Products Board. The application forms are in the website, but in case you have any difficulties, you can always write to the Managing Director at the Pest Control Products Board. Or visit our offices and you'll be advised. But the first thing is for you to make an application. In that application form, one of the things we will want to know is the composition of that pesticides that you have come up with, the chemicals that you have used, if you are using chemicals, or if it's a biocontrol, we would want to know what organisms and what the kind of toxins that organism is producing. So from there now you'll be in that application form. You also be asked for quite a bit of information. So you can't just pick something and bring. You have to know about that product, and the information may require you to tell us about the toxicology. Yeah, what harms it can do either to animals or to humans. And maybe even to the environment, is persistent in the environment, and also, of course, what pests you are targeting, because there are so many pests, and also, and then also the way it's applied for it to work, and a lot more information, comprehensive information about that pesticides. That information now helps our people to be able to evaluate. Of course, we won't only depend on the information that you have given us. We also do our own research, but that will be the basic first.
Okay. So to be clear, you're not only register and check the efficacy of synthetic pesticides, but also biopesticides.
Yes. We also look at the biopesticide, especially when they are, because they have a formulation. We would want to know that product that you have used for formulating that biopesticide. What harm will it do to the environment? What harm will it do to the people and the animals? So the only ones that we don't regulate is when it's just the insect itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go to Eric a little bit. Under the association that you represent, how important that your members distribute a safe pesticide?
That is one of the key things. That's why we are in existence in the first place. We exist for the safety of the consumers. We are guided strongly, first of all, by the FAO Code of Conduct in terms of how products must be manufactured. Forget about before distribution. Good manufacturing practice, how you manufacture, isolate, identify, and by the way, it takes 9 to 14 years for you to have a product registered to generate all the data Dr. is mentioning here. We use quite a lot of artificial intelligence in terms of the processing. We know all the possible metabolites that can come out and all the safety profile. We develop it and submit it for registration, which takes an average of 3 years in this country. Once that one is done, then there's good distribution practice on labeling. The products must be labeled in accordance, must be distributed, transported, stored. We have guidelines, protocols on how you store products and how they must be sold and recommended on product level. Now, the biggest challenge is now in the various value chains as the product moves from manufacture to distribution, to transportation, to the stockist. Then the level of control in terms of continues to we lose control there, because now different people are handling it. And that's why the regulations, and currently what we are doing with the PCPB Act, is to have quite a number of controls so that farmers, whoever is prescribing the pesticide, is giving the farmer the right thing. But we are responsible in the whole value chain in terms of making sure that the integrity of that product, as approved by the PCPB, the Pest Control Products Board, remains to the user. And we don't stop there, as mentioned. We have to go and check that the farmers has responded, applied very well, with the required personal protective equipment. He has respected the PHI, meaning when you last applied, when are you going to harvest? Now, that informs the food safety, the guarantee we provide on the food safety, and the controls that the efficacy they check. Once you have done that, then we collect those containers for safer disposal. So basically, we are responsible for all the distribution and all the protocols as the PCPB mandate and the FAO Code of Conduct. And FAO, you must know, is an international code of practice for each and everybody to follow. So basically, however, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with challenges. As much as we try to put integrity of the value chain, we have challenges in terms of emission controls, issues of counterfeits coming in, and everything else, which is a vice, which goes beyond us as much as we can try to do that. So we try to make sure that the integrity of the product remains, the information that the farmer requires to apply the product is there, and all the things that PCPB has summarized into a product label in form of the dossier that's supplied, that touches on the product itself, the safety, the toxicology, meaning how is it going to harm you in case it goes, and what are the things that you do in case you are contaminated with the pesticides. So all those things are done by the industry through training, through awareness creation and everything. But you recognize also, as an industry, we cannot do it ourselves, and that's why we need partners like the government, the county governments, and the regulator themselves.
Okay. You talked about the protective measures, and that you make sure your members follow the procedures put in place to the latter. One thing I know is majority of our, as we all know, a majority of our farmers are small-scale farmers. And most of the time when you visit their farms, they don't have the protective measures. What really happens between the agrochemical, where they bought the chemical, to them using it without having the proper protective measures?
Yeah, I mean, a good question, because while the assumption is that once the risk assessment has been done by the authority and prescribe the minimum protective equipment, then the farmer must access personal protective equipment. Now, while a lot of training has happened and awareness created, it has not resulted into a good display. And sometimes it's not about display. Sometimes in terms of access of personal protective equipment, averagely, probably you need 1,000 shillings to buy minimum, or you can improvise so that you protect yourself, let's say, with the body, with the nose mask. Something come with a cost. Now, you can imagine the nature of fragmented, the farmers are fragmented, smallholder farmers, they want to do that. Because of realizing that we have now engaged the spray service providers. If we can train majority of those, then they will take away that responsibility and the need for the farmers to do that, and then they can do the service for that. Again, also, we are working with the various manufacturers, distribution policymakers, Kenya Bureau of Standards. How can we make simple standards so that we can access and create a lot of awareness for personal protective equipment? Like, for instance, we are planning next year to have a safety awareness week, where we can train farmers on the need to have minimum protective equipment, including improvising the right material that can protect you from being there, rather than not investing money to buy a personal protective equipment. So those are the areas of interventions that we have looked at as challenging. But remember, the issue of protecting farmers and the issue of bringing the innovation, so they are totally different. But we're trying to see whether we can find a point of convergence where it's a win-win situation for each and every person. Okay. But then also everybody must place responsibility. the farmers themselves must be aware. Also, how does the government come in? How does the county government comes in? And the regulators are there, of course, to make sure that we are complying with the law.
Okay. Dr. Kimani, when it comes to the control, being the watchdog of this, some of the use of the pesticides, do you also, does the Pest Control Board also help with coming up with the labeling and all that after you've done your
Actually,
tests?
we prescribe the label, and
Okay.
the business people must comply with that label, because before we approve the pesticides to go to the market, we have to approve the label. We have to approve the label first. And in that label, we have to make sure that the right information, like when the farmer applies that pesticide, how long does he or she need to wait before she can harvest the crop? That message has to be there. If it's a pesticide that is used in a field or in an enclosure, how long does the farmer need to wait before going back to the field after spraying, because maybe the fumes may still be there? All those informations are in the label. And also, for what crop is that pesticide supposed to be used on. And I would encourage the farmers to be reading the label, because one of the major challenges we have, I guess, even when we even get medicine after prescription, we don't read the labels. Those labels are there to guide you and warn you on maybe the way you should handle that product. And the same for the pesticides, they should all be labeled. In fact, if you, a farmer, you go to an agrovet and you buy a pesticide that is not labeled, you should report to the Pest Control Products Board. Or the label is not legible, you should report, because those are the things that we regulate. We have to make sure that information that is required by the minimum information that is required by the farmer when they are using that label should be, using that product should be on the label.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Also, one of the issues that have been coming up is that the language used on the label sometimes is too technical for majority of farmers to understand. And then again, sometimes that information is too much to digest at one particular point. So sometimes you buy a pesticide, and when you look at the label itself, it's so long that most of the time farmers just throw it away. They don't read it. Is there maybe a plan to simplify these labels?
If you look at the label, the information on the label is usually divided into sections. At least, even if you don't have time to read all of it, which you should really read, you should not throw it away. In fact, when you buy the pesticides, have enough time and take time to just read. But in case you can't read everything, at least make sure you have read about the pre-harvest intervals. Yeah, you have read about the protective clothes that you need to use. You have also read the information there that in case of poisoning, what you are supposed to do, because it's also on that label, because accidents can happen. And then also the pre-entry interval also, you should make sure that you know at least the basics about the safety, even if you don't want to read all about the toxicology and all the other information that may be on that label. Okay. But we would encourage farmers to take time. If you don't know how to read, I'm sure you have at least one member of the family who knows how to read, who can read for you. Yeah. Okay. And then also to mention about the label, we also encourage the labeling in both English and Kiswahili, so that I must assure you that most of the information, the way it is on that label, is quite simplified, and it can be understood by many people. In fact, because most of the other information, we keep it in our offices, so that if anybody wants to know about more about the product, then they can come and visit us. Okay.
Let me go to Eric a little bit. You said you always conduct trainings to your members. When it comes to the use and the reading, going through the labeling, has there been an issue with some of your members that maybe it's too technical or something? Or what are some of the issues that have always come up?
One of the things we find with the label is, as Dr. has mentioned here, that the label is been simplified. And our role, for instance, is to train in terms of compliance. Internally, we comply that we must provide all the required labels, and labels must be approved before the product goes to the marketplace. And then we train farmers and every user on what are the minimum things that you must read. A farmer going to a shop, or probably you must read the product here. At least you must buy something you know. You must understand the product you're buying. You must know the problem. Is it a pest, a disease? So is that a fungicide in the first place? If it's a fungicide, and then what is it controlling your pest? Is that product recommended for your product? Crop that you are going to apply. If you have maize, for instance, and you're going there, and this product has been recommended for sugarcane, then probably that's the wrong product in the first place. So you must read and align that your problem, that product is really in sync with what your problem is. Then you have to at least understand the rates, the application equipment that you are going to use. You don't have to buy a product that's going to be applied by a plane. And yet you have, it's a knapsack sprayer that you have, it's compatible, the rates of application. If it's a edible crop, cabbages, then you have to know. If you are ready to harvest tea, you have to look at everything else, so that you observe what she completely says, things that touches on the safety of the farmer. And those are every time you have to read the label at every situation, before buying the product, before application, and even disposal, know how we're going to dispose of the product. So in terms of label compliance, I think over a period of time, there's a lot of increase in the label compliance from our members internally and everything else. And also, we try to train farmers to understand. And that's why we have both English and Swahili. So most of our trainings is geared towards, because the moment you read and understand the product label and implement what the product says, then you have complied with that product. Okay. But the moment you use it outside that label, then that's the beginning of problems.
And I'm not sure about, your member is supposed to explain to me how I'm supposed to use it, the procedures that I'm supposed to follow before using it in the farm.
You'll buy the product through an agrovet.
Yes.
That agrovet will be there. Just assume that agrovet has got a technical person to explain to you. However, the label itself gives each and every step that you need to follow in terms of pricing. So that guy will only tell you the price. The price is not what is not on the label. But the rest of the information that you require, it is both English and Swahili.
Okay.
Those are the far we can go. You can imagine if you have to make each and every language in Kenya mother tongue, then the label will be a whole file. And we have products of that minimum. So we use the national languages to make sure it is easier for the farmer to get. And also we train those agrovets so that they really prescribe what exactly the label says to the farmer. And that's where we said probably that's the line of weakness that needs to be strengthened, so that all the integrity of the information flows in one direction.
You know, I'm asking that because let's say my grandfather or my grandmother, and they don't know how to read, and they want to buy a chemical. And they get to the agrovet, and they're trying to explain to the agrovet, whoever is there, of the problem they're having in their farm. The person at the agrovet is supposed to explain to them exactly, and even prescribe a chemical for them. Is that right?
Yes, if the farmer goes, usually it is easier whenever you're moving, if you can describe in your mother tongue the problem you're having, the disease, the description of the disease, just giving how the plant is, then this guy will be able to tell you this is a problem, this is a disease. Sometimes you can carry even a leaf with the disease, and that agrovet will tell you, okay, this is, for instance, powdery mildew on tomatoes, and these are the diseases that you need to do. So if you have a knapsack, yes, you go and take, there's a measuring cylinder, you have to take 20 ml of this in 20 liters of water and apply. Also remember, you have to wait. If you apply, if you're harvesting tomatoes, don't harvest your tomatoes. Or if you are spraying your animal against ectoparasites, they will tell you don't milk your animals after this period. So it is all those things that the farmer needs to understand. So those agrovets are prescribed. That's why the product is not in the supermarket where the farmer picks and goes. It is in an agrovet where that attendant needs to explain to a farmer how to utilize the product.
Okay, Dr. Kimani. Of late, there have been a lot of issues when it comes to pesticides and pesticide use. And there have also been a lot of campaigns that we are using pesticides that are banned in other countries. Maybe you can explain to us as the control board, how true is this? Are we using pesticides that are banned in other places?
The operations of the Pest Control Products Board are usually guided by international agreements to which we are signatories, and such as the Rotterdam Convention. We also have the Basel Convention and also the Stockholm Convention. These conventions normally give guidelines on how you register the pesticides, what you consider when you are allowing their uses. However, the conventions do not prevent people from having more stringent rules in their countries than those ones prescribed by the conventions. We also have the FAO guidelines, the Food and Agriculture Organization guidelines, which also prescribe on how, what pesticides are used, and when you are registering the pesticides, what you need to consider. If you have to withdraw the pesticides from the markets, also what you need to consider. And therefore, you may find that there may be some products that have been withdrawn from countries that may have more stringent guidelines or country guidelines than the ones that are provided for by those bodies. And so you may find that in such cases, you may find that we may have products that are in Kenya, that are registered in Kenya but have been withdrawn in another country, such as the EU. But also you may find that the same product that has been withdrawn from the EU maybe is being used in Australia or is being used in the US. And therefore, before a country maybe can, or before a country can be able to withdraw the pesticides, they have to do their own risk assessments and see whether they are in agreement with the country that has withdrawn the product or not. And so as Kenya, what we are doing right now is, because there have been a lot of activism and a lot of push that maybe like all the products that have been banned in the EU should be withdrawn from the Kenyan market. And so what we have done right now, we are in the process of doing our own risk assessment through the guidelines that are given by FAO and the conventions, to see whether we are able also to, whether we should also withdraw the products. One thing we also have to consider is the importance of those products to our environment, and also what alternatives that are available in the market, whether we are importing them or whether we are making them, and the kind of pests that we are managing. Because you may realize that since we are in a tropical climate, the pests are just so many of them, and they keep on, and they damage the crops to a point where you can harvest nothing. And then also they reduce the quality of the products, such that they become unmarketable. For example, let's say you're growing tomatoes and some worms are getting in, and they may not be used for by the consumers. And then the other thing is that since we have a very high growing population also that we need to feed, we have to consider all this. However, we have to do it to ensure that whatever we recommend as a regulatory agency is protecting our humans, is protecting our environment, and also our animals. And therefore, right now we have just finished the exercise of the industry and the population giving us the risk assessment data. We had put up a notice even for the public. I don't know whether you are able to give your comments on the pesticides. Yes.
Let's hold it there for a minute. I'm being told we need to take a short commercial break, and then when we come back, we will pick it up from there. For our viewers back at home, today we are talking about pest control products, but now we are just taking a short commercial break, and we'll be back in a few.